Okay, I'm here to talk about a trip we took to Cambodia here recently, Robert Wagner and I. This all started about 30 years ago, I guess. We met a young man, a Korean national, by the name of JS. He goes by JS. And in Seattle, and over the years we've become close family friends and just brothers and sisters in the Lord. And a couple years ago, JS called, and he had become part of a mission project, a Korean mission. I think I just lost. Is it working? Yeah. Okay. Okay, and maybe this needs to be on the outside. Okay. This last spring, I decided to jump in and take the Perspectives class, which was a real eye-opener to me about the world Christian movement. And this, in conjunction with JS contacting us and talked to Bill a couple times and saying, you know, I'm involved in this mission project down here and we really could use English-speaking people, either ESL trained or not, just conversational English, because Cambodia it's really a benefit to them to learn English. And this mission project started with a seminary and evolved into a kindergarten and an elementary school, and lots of outreaches that I'm going to be talking to you about today. That's kind of the background. The Perspectives class, we needed to do a project, and so I chose a church mobilization project, and I decided to do it on this Ha Chan Cam mission project in Cambodia. And one thing led to another. Started talking about it a lot, and it just became apparent that before we encouraged anybody to get involved over there, we probably should go take a look. So Robert Wagner was very interested in doing that, so Robert and I decided to go over and check this place out. And what we saw was God was moving in Cambodia. And before I go any further, I'm going to start my timer here. Okay, so I don't go way over. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about today is, in summary, a little bit about the Cambodian background, the religion, the community, what to expect in the community, the Ha Chan Cam mission project, which really stands for Cambodia Praising God, and the main campus, the living conditions, that sort of thing. The outreaches, orphanage, a drug care center, a children's ministry training program, church plants for all peoples, all sizes, and in all places. And I will start off by telling you right here at the beginning, if you're not interested in getting caught up in foreign mission work, I suggest you probably don't want to go to Cambodia and check it out, because it's a place that grabs your heart. Okay, Cambodia, population is 16 million. It was interesting to me, I was looking it up, and it's the same size as Washington State by just 1,000 or so square miles difference, but in terms of 69,000 to 70,000 square miles, that's not a big difference. So it's about the same size as Washington State, and Bill assured me if I hit this clicker, it'll go to the next one. But, there we go. Okay, so welcome to Cambodia. This is on the border between Thailand and Cambodia. Historically, Cambodia was part of the, we call it Khmer, but they pronounce it Khmer, the Khmer Empire. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Angkor Wat dynasty, but it covered most of Indochina during the 9th to 12th centuries. It was eventually overtaken by the Thais and the Vietnamese. The Khmer Empire is thought to have been largely influenced by India and several Eastern religions. More recently, they were subject to bombings in the early 70s when the war was going on in Vietnam. The people over there we referred to it as the Vietnam War. They referred to it as the American War, which was kind of interesting. Civil war ensued shortly after that, and the Khmer Rouge came to power under Pol Pot after the communist rebels and the Cambodian government started warring against each other. Unfortunately, the Khmer Rouge came to power under Pol Pot, and several million Cambodians died during that time. In 1978, it was invaded again by Vietnam, and the result of all this has been decimated educational system, decimated health care, resurgent religion, because the Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge wanted to get rid of all religion. Didn't matter what it was, but the resurgent religion has been mostly Buddhism. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. Okay, so you can see where Cambodia is down in this lower, it's not even marked, but it's in between Vietnam here and Thailand. This thing is delayed. Oh, there's a little bigger shot where it's actually marked. It's all part of the Indochina Peninsula. What's happening here? Okay. Another bigger shot. You can see the pink line around there is the border of Cambodia. We were up in this area up here. Not sure, I think I'm supposed to point this back here. Okay, and then this is just a finer shot here. We were located right in here, close to the Thailand border. So in terms of the religion, it's an unreached people group for sure. It's primarily the central Khmer people that are being ministered to. That's 14 million out of the 16 million population. It's considered 1.7% evangelical. Buddhism is 90%. The Joshua Project reports it as achieving ultimate peace, nirvana, through gaining personal merit, building temples, giving to Buddhist monks, and studying in monasteries. Certainly not a gospel of grace. When you drive around the country, any place that there's a hill, you're probably going to see a Buddhist temple on top of it. They have been very prolific in building temples. You'll basically see them everywhere. This picture is not showing up very well. I think the next one shows up a little better, but that's a temple, and over here there's a bunch of garbage laying around. And it's Robert there taking a picture of the temple, but you can see all the garbage that's laying around right behind him. You know, to us, it just appeared to be a dead religion. It seemed much more like a cultural tradition than a passionate religion, and one that's not having a positive effect on the country of Cambodia. We saw a lot of evidence, however, that where the gospel and the love of Christ was being modeled, wonderful changes were happening, and the family of God was being expanded. The community, this is what you can expect to see around the Ha Chan Cam Mission Project. This was from one of the hills. You can see down below there's some Buddhist temples. The Ha Chan Cam Project happens to be located right over here in this city of Sarasophoan, where it's located. We hiked up to the top of this hill, and it was an opportunity to kind of take some pictures. Most of Cambodia looks like this. It's rice fields. It's flat from one end to the other. That's a typical site. I think it's a load of charcoal. They cook on charcoal. They definitely don't need any heat in Cambodia. There's 2 seasons. One's hot and one's hotter. And so but they do use charcoal for cooking, and they process a lot of charcoal. This is a typical house on the lower end of the economic scale, which I couldn't tell you percentage-wise how much of the population was at, but it's a large portion of the population live in these constructed type huts. There are some nicer homes scattered here and there throughout the landscape. It's just a picture of a local place, young boy there in the neighborhood we were walking through. Just another picture in the neighborhood where the Hot Chan Cam project is located. You see a lot of these on the roads everywhere, walking the back roads back and forth to town. A lot of cattle. They all pretty much look the same. They raise them for meat. That's in town. This is the market. The market was really an interesting place. Vegetables, all kinds of vegetables, fruit and stuff. It's pretty nice. I don't know if this picture shows up very well, but that's probably not what I'd be choosing for dinner, but she seemed pretty pleased with it. So she was selling these things. As you can see, there's not much meat on them. When you order chicken, you get a lot of bone. It's really tasty, but there's not a lot of meat on the chickens. That was a duck, I think. This is just an elderly lady sitting out in front of her place. The people are really friendly. I never felt threatened the whole time we were there, the 2 weeks we were there. It just seems peaceful. This is that same hill that we walked up. The Buddhist temples were all the way down below. They were broadcasting, they were chanting just so loud, it was just deafening over these loudspeakers when we were going up there. JS, our friend, was taking us up there to kind of see the views. But these lads were hanging around, and they just kind of were following us around. Just a typical bunch of Cambodian young men. They were really friendly guys, but we couldn't speak anything to them really. But this is a gentleman is cutting off the end of a coconut. It was a really hot day, like most days are. And that's JS on the left and Robert on the right, taking a little refreshment after our hike up the hill. It's really quite good. They keep these coconuts on ice, and they whack the end off and stick a straw in and hand it to you. And it's really quite refreshing. Just so you don't worry, in case you're interested in going over, they do have a really nice coffee shop in town. This entrepreneurial young man started a coffee shop in town. It was incredible. JS took us to all the best spots, of course. But there's another shot of it. It's just this big place. It really seems out of place, but coffee was really good, and it was a great place. So, to get on with it here, the Hot Chan Cam project. I gotta check my time here since it went crazy on me. Okay, we're going to speed up here. So the project has a Bible college. It's a 4-year seminary is what it is. Students are given a guitar at the end of the first semester. They're given a Bible when they show up. I'll talk a little bit more about the guitar connection. There's a primary school, kindergarten to 3rd grade now, a nursing school, medical and dental center, children's ministry training, church plants and outreaches, orphanages, music lessons, free on the weekends. They teach music through teaching them how to play gospel songs. It's just a very cool thing. It looks like a lot of stuff, and you may be asking, what is it all accomplishing? That's why Robert and I went over. We wanted to make sure that it really was what we saw as a work of the Lord. People are being reached, communities are being transformed with the gospel of Christ through the love of Christ. It's really a ministry where you can see both hands of the gospel. Spiritual needs are being met, and physical needs are also being met. People are openly praising God through this ministry. This is just the front gate at the seminary. That's JS on the right. That is the director president of the seminary in the Hachan Cam project in Cambodia right now. To his immediate left, his name is Mr. Kim. That is JS's son David sitting next to him, and Robert. This is the conference, this is the seminary grounds here. That's the church, and they hold a lot of classes in that sanctuary as well, to the left there, and just offices to the right. That's just an outdoor building they're building for students to come out, hang out, and play music at night, things like that. This was quite an impressive building. This is a library they just constructed. It will be the largest library in the Bante Minche province where Hachan Cam is located. It will be open to the public and everything. It was just an awesome place. They just finished constructing it. This is a picture of the inside. I wish these pictures were a little more vibrant up here, but they aren't. But you can see the tile floors. It's just clean as a whistle. There's a church in Seattle that sent a cargo crate, whatever, over, full of bicycles and a piano and zillions of books too. I believe it's kind of a Korean church in Seattle, and all kinds of books to start stocking the library. So if you're a librarian, I'm sure they could use some help there. This is another picture inside the library. I just wanted to show how, what a nice building it was. Restrooms and stuff. This is the elementary school. They're up through the 3rd grade. To the right is the kindergarten, and you can see I have plans for building a structure on top of the kindergarten. I think it's for the elementary school teachers. Their plan is to add a grade every year. They've been doing it for the last 4 years. They're up through the 3rd grade. They'll be adding the 4th grade next year and the 5th grade until they get up through the 12th grade. They've seen such a need in the community for good schooling. This is a kitchen between the elementary and the kindergarten where they cook. They serve a couple meals every day to the kids that come from around the community. This is a total outreach. There's no cost to any of the students. That includes the seminary students. That is the hospital building there, the medical clinic, I would say. There's a dental clinic, medical, and also a nursing school housed inside that building. This was just constructed as well. It is not staffed yet. There's a big need for dental help, medical help, nurses, all that sort of thing, short-term or long-term. That's the boys' dorm. That's the mess hall. That's where we ate every day outside. That's what they cook on. That's a charcoal outside stoves. That's where they purify their water and everything like that. But all the cooking goes on these charcoal stoves. That was a typical breakfast there. They threw an egg in so we wouldn't feel totally. The watermelon, these little things on the bottom, they don't show up very well, but they're called mangosteens. They're pretty popular in the United States right now. They're absolutely delicious. You peel them and it looks like you're going to eat a garlic, but believe me, it tastes nothing like a garlic. It's a fruit and it's just absolutely delicious. I wish Robert was here. That's called a sugar apple or something like that. They were pretty good too. Interesting fruit, but they were really, really tasty. Okay, this is just to give you a flavor of the missionary quarters. This is a hallway that's open on either end, and the doors go in off the aisleway there. Missionary quarters. So if you're a visiting missionary, that's where you end up staying. This is in this building. Come on. That's the inside of a room. This was JS's daughter, Rose's room. She was back in Korea for a while. So we just took a couple pictures so you get an idea of what. And it's a pretty good sized room. I'd say it's like 12 by 12 or so. Has a bathroom shower on the end of it. Just kind of the normal things that go on around there. You wash your own clothes. They do have a washing machine. We hung them out to dry. Normal stuff. Okay, ministry outreaches. Come on. Medical, dental, and nursing school. That's the hospital building again, or the medical building that houses all three of those things. You're seeing this. What do we got? Bill's waving at me. Okay. We only got a few minutes left. Okay, I'm just going to click through these really quick. This is the inside of the medical building. This is the dental clinic. There's a few tools there, that sort of stuff. That's the nursing school. This is really important. There's a concept called a peacemaker that you learn about in Perspectives. It's some local, national resident that you become friends with. Well, this happened to be the vice governor of the Biante Minche province. JS and his wife have become very close friends with him. He is the second from the right there, that's his wife. On the left, second from the left, excuse me, that's his wife. Sitting next to him, that's a Korean gentleman, myself and Robert. That man needs prayer. JS has formed a really close relationship with him, and through that man, he has made contacts. He just started inviting him to church activities. We met this gentleman, he's very gracious. And through that relationship, he's introduced Ha Chan Cam to a new orphanage. This is one of them. Oops, we're moving right along here. I don't know what's happening. Okay, so this is some orphanage kids. The orphanage is really cool. They separate up into separate little homes. And for the kids, boys in one, girls in the other, they keep them all ages in one room with a house mom and a house dad in some situations. So it feels more like a family. The orphanage, they stay with these kids through the university level. If the kids show that kind of aptitude, they support them all the way through. If they want to get jobs, they'll get jobs, and they'll eventually end up in the community with a job somewhere. The reason I put this up here is we met this man right here. This young man, his name's Dara. That's JS there, and you might recognize this guy. That's Amos from Myanmar. We also took in a little conference while we were over there, Calvary Conference. But Dara spent some time growing up in an orphanage. Dara is now a dentist. He went to the university in Phnom Penh. He's attached to a Calvary Chapel church on the border in Poi Phet, on the border of Cambodia and Thailand. He's been with the church there for 3 years now, and now he's going back to his local village and becoming a pastor. It was just a very moving testimony to me. Drug abuse, the healthcare center. The governor also introduced JS to this a month or two ago. Now the Ha Chan Cam Mission Project is going in and doing Bible studies. They're teaching Korean and English on Wednesdays and Thursdays. They do a Bible study on Saturday, and they do a church service on Sunday with a graduate from the missionary project, from the seminary, leading the worship. These men they're incarcerated. It's a jail. They're making sponges out of plastic bags to sell. You can't see inside here, but this was the ladies' housing. They were doing seamstress type work in there. But it's just all because of this relationship he has with this peacemaker, this vice governor of of the Biante Minche province. Okay. So, click along here. This is children's ministry. They have an outreach, a 2-year training program for those kids that don't want to go through the 4-year seminary. We had the opportunity to go on an outreach to them, to the Khmer Empire Dynasty, Angkor Wat. They set up just an outreach for children of the workers that were outside of the Angkor Wat. All the concession areas, they have children hanging around. So It's very similar to what you'd see our church doing when we go to Mexico or Peru or something like that. Okay, church planning. One of their biggest church plants is called the Aha Village. It's been there for 2 years. It's 1,000 acres that they're able to purchase. I'll just zip right through it. We were able to go to a Sunday service there. There's probably about 300 people that go there now. That's Mr. Kim that's giving the message this morning, because he went out there with us, and Samoan that's interpreting, a Cambodian that's interpreting for the congregation there. That's the Korean young pastor there that is heading up the Aha Village right at the moment, but eventually that will be transitioned over to a Cambodian pastor. And I'll just really try to get through here really quick now. They serve a big meal afterwards. This is the project. They bought the property. They have 9 families that are living on the property now. These are their homes. That's a well that's been drilled. That's a typical house on the property. There's no electricity out here. You drive for an hour and a half to get to this place. They had not heard the gospel 3 years ago. And there's over 300 people coming to worship there. I love these little houses. There's a number of places we've seen where they have Jesus Loves You painted on the outside of the house. This is some of the people from the neighborhood that were being taken home. Peaceful Hope Church, another church plant, Pastor Horn Navi. She's a lady. There's a congregation of 600. You may think, well, she's a lady, is that good? I was listening to J. Vernon McGee right before I visited this place, and he said some lady came up to him and said, I'm a pastor, and is that okay in Brazil or something like that? He says, as long as there isn't a man that steps up, you better keep doing your work. And I just happened to listen to that, and it was really impacting to me. But this is a church in a local community. They have 5 church plants going out from this church. She graduated from the seminary 5 years ago. Very nice lady. From home church to a building accommodates growth, reaches out further in the community, teaches music lessons. You can see what it says there. This is a typical, when they get to the point of a home church needing a church building, this is more of a typical church that's being constructed. Okay, home church. Okay, Pastor Oak Sareen. This is a home church. This is definitely a home church. That's Pastor Oak Sareen. To the right of JS right there, that's his wife and his son. That's his home and his church. He has about 15 to 20 meeting there. What can we do? I'm not going to get into any of this. We're going to be setting up an informational meeting. So if you're interested in getting involved, there's plenty that can be done. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to...
Hello. Thanks, Dave. So Bill asked a couple of us to come up and share a little bit about the Romanian trip that we had here recently. So I'm going to share briefly, and then Stacy will come up after me and share a little bit. First, I want to introduce the team here. And we'll just go left to right. Diana and Carl, Catherine. We met up with a team from Germany. So it was us from Olympia, and we met up with a team from Calvary Chapel, Herborn in Germany. There we go. Thank you. Jessica and Danny Forsman there. Don Canwright, Stacy Gassell, Chris Podis. That's me peeking out from the back. Uta. I cannot pronounce her name correctly. It's like 3 letters, but in English it's really hard to say. So we say Uta and then Bill there at the end. Unfortunately, we could only take 1 piece of luggage on the plane due to travel constraints. So we all had to pack stuff in this 1 bag. So I'm kidding, not really. But we got close. We got close as a team. Sorry. So we got back, like I said, a couple of weeks ago, still adjusting to the time change from being on the other side of the world, and then we had daylight savings time here, so it's like, we'll see how this goes. I feel like I'm in Idaho. I don't know. That might be the wrong way. So let me start by reading some scripture here. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, starting in verse 17, if you'd like to follow along. Says, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. All this is from God, through Christ, who reconciled us to himself and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. That is, in Christ, God was reconciling the world to himself, not counting their trespasses against them, and entrusting us the message of reconciliation. Therefore, we are ambassadors for Christ, God making his appeal through us. We implore you on behalf of Christ to be reconciled to God. For his sake, he made him to be sin who knew no sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God." And to me, that's just amazing, because God gets all the credit. We can go and do stuff no matter where we are. So we can be here in Olympia, in our area, all the people that we interact with, wherever we go, it's really God that gets the credit. We can really do nothing, because apart from him, there's nothing that we do lasts. So it's amazing and an amazing blessing just to be a part of what he's doing in the world. So this was my first time to Romania. I hadn't been there before. And I just want to thank, before I forget, all the people that put this together too, because logistically it was a tricky trip. We had airplane trips and places to stay and vans to organize and things like that. And we did have a lot more luggage than just that one. So all that had to go along with us. So Carl and Diana did a great job, and Bill, and there were a lot of others involved with just helping us out and supporting the team as we traveled. Romania, like Bill mentioned, during the first part of the service, is coming out from under communism. So they're still trying to deal with a lot of employment issues and a lot of education issues, and deal with some corruption within their society. We had the opportunity to go into the schools there and work with the churches. And so we were pretty busy, and it was really good. When we first got there, the first day of the week, which was Monday, we heard that we weren't able to get into the school, so that was a concern. And finally, they said that we do want to meet with you, so they let us in. We were able to go into the elementary school, which we were planning to do a VBS with for a couple days, and then also into the high school, which is, they call it a technical high school, which is kind of like our new market. They do vocational training and things like that there too. We met with them. They gave us tours. They turned out to be real open. We met with other believers there that were teachers, and they didn't put any limits on what we could do. So we were able to go in and do the VBS for 2 days later in the week to 2 different sets of kids, and we were able to go into the high school and talk to their English classes and some other classes as well. They had us split up, so there was like 2 or 3 of us that would go into the high school individual classes, and then it was open to talk about anything. So they could ask us questions. Danny and I went the first day and went into an English class, talked with the high school students there, and they were very interested in Americans and American culture, and I had no good answers for them, but they just were interested in talking, and we were able to go into a chemistry class. The second day that we were able to go into classes in the high school, we went into another English class with a different teacher and a different set of kids. And Uta there had started something the day before with them that she just picked up on. So we talked to them for a little while, but then she started asking them, what sort of things pain you? What sort of things trouble you in this world? And we were writing these things up on the board, talking about Jesus, that Jesus covers that Jesus can take that away. Not all in this world, but in the world to come. Right? All the tears will be wiped away. And so we were talking about these things, and the kids were opening up and sharing just these things that they had been through, the divorce. The teacher in the class actually started sharing quite a bit too. She'd gone through some troubling relationships and things, was talking about that. And we were connecting these pieces about how Jesus reconciles us to Christ, right? That he reconciles us to God, that gives us that hope in this world. One of the kids there shared that his father killed his brother, and that teacher was really shooken up by that. So we were able to wrap that class up, make a lot of individual connections with the kids, and then afterwards, this is just amazing. We were out in the hallway in this public school talking to this teacher. Her name's Gabby. For a long time, and just wound up just praying with her there in the hallway before we had to move on. So that was really neat and special. So the other thing I wanted to share real briefly about was that just enjoyed talking one-on-one with people, like connecting with them. And I don't speak any Romanian, but they oftentimes spoke English, especially the younger people. Bill had gone with Don and the pastor of the Baptist church there, Sebastian, on a brief road trip to the Calvary Chapel Bible College in Hungary, and had rented a car for that, and they had gotten back, and then we as a group were going to walk someplace and go have dinner that evening with another Romanian and his Romanian guy and his wife. So Bill's like, oh, hey, Ken, let's get in the car and let's drive up, and we can just kind of go up there, because he had to return the rental car, right? So this doesn't sound as bad as it was. The rest of the people had to walk. So Bill and I drove up, parked outside of this restaurant. We were just hanging out outside, and a lot of people were walking by, waiting for this other group the rest of the team to meet up with us there, because they were walking, which again doesn't really sound as bad as it was. But all these people were passing by on the street, and then Bill's like, hey, I think that one guy just said something in English, so let's go talk to him. So we wound up talking to him. It turns out he was waiting for his friends hanging out so they can go drinking at this bar. And Bill engages him and starts talking about God. It turns the conversation over to, what do you believe in God? And wound up with this discourse going back and forth about more philosophically, how do we know God exists? If God exists, why doesn't he just let me do whatever I want to do? Because that's fun. God gave us pleasurable things and things like that. So they were talking about that. One of the guys that was with them, his name is Claudio, he pulled me off and started saying, hey, I believe in God, right? He was with these guys, these friends. But he was sharing with me that there's really no infrastructure there for young believers. He was going to the college. You can go to college there if you get into the program for nothing, but there's oftentimes no jobs afterwards. And there's not a Christian presence like we would know. There's no Christian Bible study or things like that in these colleges or the high schools. No outreach like that. So he was sharing with me about his hope and his struggles and for the future of what that might be. Because he doesn't know. I mean, a lot of people just wind up leaving Romania. So we left it, we wrapped it up, we had to go, and they had to go off and do their thing. Bill was able to get the phone numbers for a couple guys, right? And called them up the next day. And one of them was willing to meet with us. So we wound up going to this Irish pub in Romania, and just sitting down and talking with him for a couple hours, a lot about philosophical stuff, but on a more personal level, because he wasn't around his friends. So he didn't wind up making a decision, but I get the feeling that he was really close. His name, I think, was Alexander, something like that, and close. Bill wound up giving him his Bible and just encouraging him to read a gospel in there. And he took it, and he said that he would. Very thoughtful, contemplative guy. But for me, I think a lot of it was just those one-on-one reactions, talking to people individually, sharing with them, being able to share the gospel in a real open way. That was an answer to prayer, that we could go in there. Oftentimes on mission trips, you kind of feel like it's tourism, like you're going as a tourist there. It's like, well, why are we here? We could just give these people money, or these organizations some money, and they could do better with it. But I think this trip, I realized as an American, there's a novelty to that, and that allowed us to do things that the local Romanian believers maybe couldn't do, because we could go into the schools and do a lot of this outreach that wouldn't otherwise be available. So I want to encourage you with that, and just emphasize that these things we don't do on our own. And it's really this church here that supports us by prayer and by giving, and we don't go alone. There's a lot of family members that go with us in a way, a lot of friends that go with us. So that was a neat trip. I just wanted to share those couple things briefly, and now I think I'm done. So Stacy's going to come up and share a little bit with you guys as well.
Good morning. So this is my third mission trip. I went to Fiji twice, and then this was my first time to Romania. And it was very different. Fiji was very structured, and this was very open. And I enjoyed that in that it left a lot of opportunities for God to work and open doors. If we didn't have an extremely structured schedule, then when somebody said, hey, do you want to go get Coke? We can say, hey, I think we can fit that in at this time. And we were able to meet with people that wasn't planned because of that. I want to tag on to what Ken just said before I forget, because I've forgotten before. And I just really want to thank you as a body and as a church for those that gave either financially or prayers or just thought about us and words of encouragement. Our team was so much bigger than the 7 Americans and 4 Germans that went over there. You don't realize it, but when we're over there, we do think about all of you back here who have supported or given or different things like that. And it is a team of, I don't know, probably close to, I don't know how many of you were thinking of this, but I can probably think of about 100 names that had either given to me or supported or said they were thinking about me on the trip. And I know each team member could do that. So thank you for being a part of our trip, and thank you for allowing us to be your feet on the ground as you went over. So real quick, what popped up in my mind is we did get to go share the gospel. And we shared it with a lot of kids. I'm trusting that God took our voices of sharing the gospel and did something with that, because our first day VBS, we had 67 Romanian children, probably 9 was the oldest age, and no interpreters and no teachers for about 45 minutes. So as I looked around the room, I saw a lot of our teamers with big, huge eyes, like, what do we do with these kids? And so we just kept plugging away and sharing the gospel, and God taught me through that I just need to lean on Him. And my job is to share the gospel, and it's His job to make those words be heard. So I'm trusting for that first Wednesday that 67 kids heard the gospel, even though they were running and screaming and pushing each other around. So it was quite the day. But what I was really thinking about was the people that we got to go over and encourage as other Christians. As I was reading through different of Paul's letters, he wanted to go see and go encourage the other churches, and he sent people to go encourage the churches. And one of the things I was excited about in going over is that we might be able to go encourage other Christians. It's a very depressed, kind of a hopeless feeling over in Romania, coming out of the communism, and I think a lot of the Christians are discouraged. And so I was looking forward to that ability to do that. Carmen here, the lady is the pastor's wife at the church. I'm just going to share you a couple stories about some of the people that we ran into who were Christians. Carmen and her husband, Sebastian, are part of the local church that we got to attend and work with. She works with the best way I can describe it is it's kind of like a boys and girls club for very troubled kids. I think the oldest one I saw was maybe 11 that was there, and a number of them already had police records. They come from abused homes, they come from some neglect, just poverty, and they're working with them and trying to get the kids our homework done, they're learning lessons, they're getting their grades up, and just trying to help work with the families and the schools and their mediators, her and another social worker. And that's what she runs. Her husband obviously runs the church there. And then we got to go on Sunday, 2 services on Sunday and a couple of times during the week, and just meet with the church. Don shared on Sunday morning. He shared his testimony. Bill shared Sunday night. I believe that he talked a little bit about servanthood. I don't know because I slept through half of it. Unfortunately, he watched me sleep through half of it. But we got to share with the church. And then we got to go meet with some of the young women that were at that church also that she works with. Carmen was there with us. And we were talking to them about what it means to be worthy and to feel worthy, and that it's not by our looks and things like that. And one of the people on our team said, what challenges you, or what's hard for you in your life? And one of the girls says, it's hard to me to be one of the only Christians in school. She's probably about 14, 15 years old. It's hard to live a life for Christ when I'm the only Christian in school and everyone around me doesn't believe me. And so you can be thinking about these young girls. There's about 2 other ones that popped up and said the same thing. And that was what she was having a hard time with. So be thinking about those girls and praying for them. We were able to encourage her with that. I don't know what I'm pointing this at. Little Mia here. Mia turned 77 the Tuesday that we were there. She's one of the things that was not planned on our trip, but because our driver, Gabriel, who's also a Christian at a local church, who picked us up at the airport, and we just met him. We're exhausted. He brings us into town, and he says, hey, you want to go meet a couple families? We're like, okay. We weren't awake enough to even answer him. And we went and met little Mia. And had we not met her at that time, we wouldn't have been able to bless her when she turned 77 on her birthday. She takes care of her 4 grandkids in about, I'd say about maybe a 2-room, 20 by 20 house. And her daughter died of a heart attack. And so she's raising these 4 kids. The oldest is probably 11. And we were able to bring her flowers and food and cookies for her kids and just sing her happy birthday. I think 11 of us crammed into this little 10 by 10 room with her family. And all she kept doing in Romanian was praising God. And Gabriel, our driver, had introduced us and was translating the first time. Second time we went back, I couldn't understand what she was saying, but she just kept pointing up, saying thank you, and pointing to Jesus. And I know she was praising God for what was brought to her. So we were able to bring her some encouragement in what I'm sure is a challenging life for her. Margarita and Diana there. I'm going to see if I can get a better. That's when we first got there, we couldn't get into Margarita's house because Ramona, who's the younger girl, wasn't there to let us in. Margarita can't, her health is bad. She can't move around a whole lot. She loves to knit and crochet. So we went, and Diana's met her before, and we went to make sure we went and encouraged her and spent some time in her little kitchen. And Diana was trying to get Ramona to read John 3:16. Ramona read it, and as soon as she started reading it in Romanian, Margarita started crying. Just crying, and she'd kind of try and talk and explain things, and she'd start crying again. Once again, I really don't like language barriers. I don't know what touched her completely, but I know that Margarita has a love for Jesus, and John 3:16 really reached out and encouraged her. Great lady. This young lady on the left, Maria, I believe is her name. Half people called her Mary and half called her Maria. So I never knew really what to, I called her Mary because that's what I heard more often. But she was our translator, an amazing young Christian lady who gave up her time. She's another social worker at that Boys and Girls Club, gave up her time to help us and to translate for us. And she was an answer to prayer on Friday when our translator that we had when we were talking to the kids, the message wasn't getting through. And I was supposed to read a story, and I knew that story wasn't going to be understood. And so I just prayed that God would solve the problem. I didn't know what or how it was going to work, but this is the kids would hear the message. And 20 seconds later, Maria walked through the door. And Maria is a great translator. She has a heart for our team. She was friends with a number of people on our team. And I said, hey, do you have time? And she looks at me and paused, and I could tell she really didn't have time. She said, I'll make it work. And together we were able to share the story of Max Lucado called You Are Special, because she took the time out of her day to do that. Diana is friends with her and has been encouraging her over the last few visits, and I got to witness them just having a moment of time of encouraging each other. She's newly married, and she was talking to Diana about relationships and God, and Diana just spent about 10 minutes of just investing time into encouraging this young lady to keep going and to just keep living her life for Christ with the kids and her husband and everything else. And so those are a few other people, the teachers at school. There was a lot of teachers at school that were Christians that we were able to invest into and just encourage them to keep going. Our driver, pastor of another local church, just over and over again, we were able to invest in these lives of these Christian people who are having a hard time in what appears to be a hopeless little community there. And so it was just great to be able to do that. As a result, we were encouraged as a team. We were brought together as a team. We challenged each other as a team. and ways that we were thinking about things, but we also laughed a lot together as a team. I was talking to Jessica the other day, and I don't think that I've not laughed on any trip, I don't think, as much as we did on this trip. They were taking videos of each other laughing and then laughing about those videos. So it was just a great time to encourage each other, challenge each other, and just see what these people are doing over there in Romania. To end it, I just want to say, I want to encourage you to, one, be praying for the different missionaries that pop up in your head in the communities you're around. And then two, to challenge you, these people are just living their everyday lives in their everyday community and working at sharing Christ. And that is no different than we should be doing here. So as you think about these guys, be praying for them, but also live your life here. You are missionaries in your everyday life, in your everyday community. So be thinking around the world, but also here at home with those you're around. So that's what I have.